Hey guys, let's pick up from where we left off. Um, what we're trying to complete is a short video where the God rays are kind of like animated a little bit, you know? And that's pretty simple to do. You wouldn't want to render out, like, this thing is 9 seconds long. You wouldn't want to render out, like, 9 seconds worth of frames. That's a lot of frames considering how long this thing takes. So what we're going to do is kind of cheat a little bit by working a little more in Photoshop. It's a little more work, but it really saves a lot of time in the end because the computer's too slow for us. You know what I mean? So let's think about what we're doing at this point. Right here, what we want to do is have one static light fog pass image, one static beauty pass image, and just change the way that the God rays look a little bit. Because of that, if we did want to do a batch render, we could turn off these two to make them so they're not renderable anymore. It will only render the God pass. And that's fine. But it's going to be so simple that you may only want to just render out two images the way that you have been before, like just hitting the render current frame and saving it out, doing a second one, saving it out that way. This way it's just a little more automated if you choose to do that. So let's take a look at the attribute editor here in the God rays spotlight shape, right? Last time we created we attached a fractal or a noise to this color. And if you animate it and scrub along the timeline, you'll see that, oh wait, no, not scrub along the timeline, scrub along this right here, you'll see that it kind of like changes the light, and that's because it's literally changing up here in the sample, right? So that's interesting. There's a couple things we could do. You could right-click this and set a key and go a few frames forward on the timeline and change this and set a key. That's what I would probably do. It could be as simple, if you want, as going to the fractal node, rendering out an image, and then changing the time to whatever, and then rendering out a second image and just saving them both. Whatever you choose to do, I'll do the first method. So at frame 1, I'll set a key on time. On frame 10, I'll set a key times 10, or 1, it doesn't really matter. Set a key, okay? So somewhere between 1 and 10, the God rays will change, and that's cool. Now, you could set up a batch render if you really so choose to, but we only need like 2 or 3 frames and that's it, okay? So render one out, and then go to the next time, then render a second one out, and do the same thing a third time. You only need 2 or 3, okay? So once you have that, let's go ahead and I'll make a new document in Photoshop. All right. What we'll need to do is to open, and we should have several images now. We have the beauty pass in Mental Ray, which we'll want to open. Okay. We'll have placed our light fog pass, which we'll want to open, and we can screen this if we'd like. We'll have a bunch of God ray passes. I rendered out 10. Like I said, you only need like 2 or 3, so let's open them each individually. 1, and we'll place 2, and we'll place 3. Okay? So, God ray 1, God ray 2, God ray 3, they all are different. Let's go ahead and screen these so we can see what's happening. All right? These are all like smart objects, so if you want, you can rasterize these layers and then change them individually to change the color. So to colorize and then make these like a reddish or a yellowish or whatever, what have you. I'm going to make them yellower. And it doesn't, at this point, exactly matter, like if they're exactly the same color or not. You can do that if you'd like, and that'll probably work out just fine. Okay, so what we need to do is down here in the timeline, give ourselves more space and create a video timeline here. Okay? And basically what we want to do is phase in one of these layers and phase out the next layer. Okay? So we're going to key the opacity. If you can animate in Maya, animating in Photoshop is pretty similar, and animating in After Effects is extremely similar to Photoshop. All right, so let's take our 3 God ray passes. I'm selecting all 3 of these, and I'm going to expand these. Okay, I can hit this little stopwatch button on each of these to set a keyframe on opacity, and right now each of these has more or less auto keyframe turned on. So now these are all set to 0 on the opacity, and that's how it looks for them. I could scrub forward on the timeline and see my time code down here, but I can also just double click it and type it in. So I'm going to go to 1 second, and with all 3 of these selected at once, change the opacity up to 100. Then I'll go to 2 seconds and change it all back down to 0. Okay, and that's all I need to do. All this extra stuff at the end, I'll just trim down because I don't need it. Might help me see it easier that way. So let's deselect the layer, and now what we need to do is just sort of like push it back and stagger it. So as this one is fading out, this one can start fading in. Same thing up here. As this starts fading out, we can start fading in this top one. Okay? If we watch it, we can hit this play button. We can see it sort of animating that nice way. And that only goes for a few seconds, that's 5 seconds. If I wanted to, I can just select all 3 of these, duplicate these layers, and again, just move these ones back as well. So this first one can start coming in as this one's phasing out. The only thing that you'd have to keep track of is that if you go this far, your light fog pass will no longer be showing. That's just because down here it doesn't, this is our light fog pass, it's not extending the entire timeline. Just extend that all the way to the end, and there you have it. That's it. So you can let it play, kind of watch that nice animation go. Nicely done. Now keep in mind, this isn't going to work if your camera is actually moving and animating, considering that your images are not actually like moving, they're just phasing in and out of the same thing, of the same static phase, okay? So this works well when your camera is static and you want to kind of trick it this way. If your camera is actually moving, you may need to do a little bit more with rendering out separate frames, which is kind of a pain in the ass, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. All right, so that's what we have. If you want to render this video out, go to File, Export, Render Video, all right, and upload this to the Google Drive instead of your static image. And I'll see you later.